Often some memories appear to be quite distant, even if things have happened very recently. I have been trying to remember various details about the lockdown. It was still quite difficult even if I spent hundreds of hours in the streets. When I talk with people about it and when I show them these photographs, I realize that they also have forgotten many of these details, as if they tried to leave everything behind. The lockdown was announced on Sunday the 22nd of March. I am an Athens-based photographer and my creative work outside the studio usually relates to the documentation of historic and social issues that I find interesting. One of the first things that I remember vividly about the lockdown is the complete silence and the sound of my own footsteps in the empty streets. I usually wake up very early in the morning, so initially this emptiness was not completely strange to me. However, this time it was happening everywhere and at the same time, in every neighborhood, in every street. It felt like a rushed evacuation. For me, photography is not only inspiration or following action wherever it happens. There is always lots of preparation and planning, lots of notes, lots of remapping, and lots of reading. I started photographing in the neighborhood where I grew up and went to school, Pankrati. Then moved on to other areas which I knew well, and I knew that they were usually very busy and at the same time they were visually inspiring. Small neighborhoods like Petralona, like Exarchia, Gazi. My priority was not to photograph large avenues and landmarks which were evidently awesome and visually appealing in such emptiness, but locations which emitted the spirit and the true identity of the city. Gradually, I started creating a new hierarchy of roads and locations that I wanted to include in this documentation I was making. The view of the city without anyone in the streets was stunning and also shocking, but made me realize that a city is not a city without its inhabitants. So, despite this overwhelming human absence, it felt that behind those walls, the city was still full of life. I started connecting with people who lived alone. It felt as if their fragile and isolated lives were the hidden extension of the city. The shootings were completed on the last day of the lockdown. Since I started working on this project, it was very clear in my mind that the end result should be a book that would be viewed page after page. Very much like a family photo album, a book with vintage photographs, or a public record. Even if I were using Google Earth and Google Maps very often during my shootings, they only came into the design of the book sometime later. I soon realized how much these maps have entered everyday life and have changed our perception of the real world. A world of information versus the real world with real distances and real time. Gradually, the book became more and more complex in its design, its architecture, and its construction. I was really thrilled that Kerrer was keen in publishing this work, reminding me that this was not a matter that concerned exclusively Athens and Greece, but is part of our collective memory. What remains is the funding for this book to come true. For this, I need your support.